Welcome back to another session. I hope you were well. Uh, in the session I covered previously, I started the whole conversation about anxiety, anxiety relates and is connected to your emotional state and well-being, and how this is connected to depression. In today's session, I'd like to do something different. I want to build on the prior session by looking backwards. In order to move forward, sometimes you do have to stop and look backwards. Further on in today's session, you will hear me talk about the importance of not looking backwards too long. But in any case, let's start as follows, because I think most people will relate to what I'm about to share. Anxiety about the past and from the past is real. We all have post-traumatic stress that comes from our childhood, life experiences we had, memories we have from the past. So therefore, trauma, as defined by the medical profession, post-trauma that comes from our past, is relatively common for a lot of people. Many of us have things in our closets that we are not too proud of, things that were done to us that we are not too proud of, things that perhaps we did to other people that we are not too proud of, things that we saw we neither did to other people, neither was it done to us, but we just were witnesses, or we sometimes were advocates that we are not too proud of. I take all of those and I put it in the box and I say, fine, let's acknowledge that that really does exist. For some people, what has happened in the past is manifesting itself in pain, in its various shades and forms and palettes in the present. And it is, therefore, important to understand, how do you heal? How do you move on? How do you let go? And how do you find peace and happiness and contentness and fulfillment and abundance that exists in the future? Some time ago, I was having a conversation with someone. In the conversation we had, and I'll make a few changes so I don't make any reference or give any ideas about who this person might be. In the conversation, I realized at the early stage of the conversation, someone I had only just met. I didn't know the person. I'd only just met them. This is within 5 or 6 minutes of meeting them. And as we conversed, they kept referring back to the past, and they kept asking me questions. Don't you ever look back in the past? Don't you ever look back and at your childhood and things that were done to you, etc., and etc. And I said no, and he kept asking questions about, I don't understand why you can't look back and see, things that were done and how it's affecting you today. Now, all of that may have been possible. Things done to me in the past, possible. Sins committed against me in the past, plausible. Errors of omission and commission committed towards me in the past, probable. But I said to him something that I would like to offer to you. You see, I can spend all of today's session talking about post-traumatic experiences that you may have had, which is causing part of your depression and unhappiness. I don't think that will be serving you very well. So let me do what I think is within my power. Like the great writer says, silver and gold have I not, but that which I have, I give unto you. I said to the individual, and I put this across to you, that I live my life like a driver in a car. And in every car, and I want you to make this observation and connect this observation with yourself whenever you have a feeling of anxiety, a state of depression, unhappiness. I said, as the driver in the car, I know where I am, but I'm trying to get to a destination. Let's call that the promised land. However that might be described in shade, form, design, whatever it might be. I have a destination. I know where I am. I know where I'm trying to get to, and I have a roadmap. The windscreen of a car is that wide. It covers the entire width of a car. It's also that deep. It allows for complete visuals looking outwards, not just towards the road, but downwards, center line, and even upwards. The rear view mirror and the side mirror are that small. I said to him, and I put this across to you, that I live my life looking forward. 95% of my time is focused on the future and where I am trying to get to. 5% at best I spend looking at the side mirrors or the rear view mirror. If you drove your car looking backwards and looking at the rear view mirror or side view mirror, you will end up in an accident, which is where most people have found themselves. You keep looking backwards, but you're accelerating at the same time as you are looking backwards, and therefore pain is inevitable. I also said, well, I will occasionally glance to my side view mirror and my rear view mirror to remind me of where I've come from, but also in the event that I want to make a change to the lanes on the motorway, I glance to make sure there isn't something in my blind spot. I look back to make sure there isn't an oncoming traffic that could cause me huge pain or can become a hazard. But 95% of my time, I look ahead. I would like to encourage you to think about this concept and see how you can adapt this into your life. I also said to him that there were things that have happened to me in the past. I tend to categorize those things as life events. I don't use my past as a belt to whip myself up with every other time or every other day or every time I feel bad. I take my past with all of its shades, ugly, bad, some good, and I think about that as a tapestry, a painting, a work of art that has created who I am today. It's not perfect, it's not ideal. For some people, it's not to their taste or liking. But to change any part of that past means I alter who I am today. So I bless the past. I let go and I let God. We all have what we call intellectual faculties, and this is where today's session perhaps starts to make some sense. Humans are very different from animals in that for animals, generally speaking, they have their instincts and they have a code from genetics, which is why a gazelle, as soon as it is born, can roam with the wild and with the pack, because instinctively he understands the lion is hunting me. So I have to run. There isn't time for me to sit back and nurse and rest for 18 years. Otherwise, I will be someone else's lunch. Instinct, the genetic code. Human beings, on the other hand, we are far different from animals. We are the highest form of creation. We've been gifted something we call free will. We have an intellect, and in that intellect, we have the opportunity and the ability to choose our emotional state. See, nothing is either right or wrong, but thinking makes it so. Very hard to accept, especially if you've had past trauma. The events that have happened have occurred. The suffering you're going through now is by virtue of your thinking, how you're replaying those memories. With our imagination, we can pre-play the future. With our memory, we can replay the past. This brings me to the intellectual faculties that I mentioned. Like animals, we have sensory faculties, the ability to see, smell, touch, taste, and hear. Animals have the same ability, and so we collect data and information from our world, and we try to make sense of it. Animals pick that information, and the genetic code helps them decode the action they need to take, sometimes good, sometimes bad. Human beings, on the other hand, because we've been given this ability to create our own world and experiences, all of those things that we experience have no meaning. We give it purpose, we give it meaning. And therefore, whilst the sensory faculties and the way we collect information from through interaction with our world is important, how we use our intellectual faculties, which is something animals do not have but lack, is what determines our emotional state, our future, our well-being, and our happiness. Imagination, memory, will, intuition, perception, these are our intellectual faculties. that we have, and focus, 6, that allow us, each individual, to collect information through the senses and use that information to create our own environment, our world, our experiences. With your memory, you can replay past experiences. With your imagination, you can pre-play future experiences. With your focus, you can keep your eyes locked onto a goal. With your perception, you can see things from different perspectives. With your will, you can say, I will achieve this until. We all have this, what we call gifts of the gods, that allow us to have heaven on earth, but also equally important, allows us to have hell on this earth. The reason I've explained all of that is you might be going through a phase of anxiety. Part of it might be due to your past traumatic experiences. I acknowledge that. Something happened to you. It wasn't your fault. It was wrong. It may have been your fault. It was still wrong. It was neither your fault or someone else's. It wasn't pleasant. I get that. I grant you all of that. The question I have, however, is this. Is your suffering allowing you to live the life that you want to lead? Are you living life to your full potential? Are you happy in that process? Are you happy in that suffering? If it's suffering, then it means that the cause-effect relationship is not creating an outcome that you want, and therefore you must let go. If on the other hand, you're happy where you are, if you have a life of abundance, fulfillment, happiness, joy, contentness, then perhaps there's nothing to change. For those who suffer, especially for those who have anxiety, you have to learn how to let go. You have to learn how to let go of certain behaviors, certain thought processes, certain actions. You see our thoughts, let me say this, by thought what you want is created. By feeling, it is sent to you. By expectation and action, you receive it. So we create by our thoughts, and how we think determines how we feel, and how we feel manifests itself in what we call our emotional vibration or emotional state and resonance, and that pushes the body into an action. There is something we do every day for those who actually go through anxiety that causes you to repeat a pattern. It's almost like a routine. You see, a chain of habits are too light to be felt until they become too heavy to be broken. There is a lifestyle. Think about this carefully. A chain of habits are too light to be felt until they become too heavy to be broken. There is a routine, there's a ritual. The secret to your future, the secret to the current life you have today is hidden in your daily routine of the past. I can look at your life and I can look at what you do daily, whether that be your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, your expressions, and I can predict with some level of certainty what your future will be if nothing has changed, all things remaining equal. In order to change the life you have today, begin with the end in mind and work backwards. Your way isn't working, and if it isn't, try something new. If it is working, but there is anxiety and pain and depression, then change something. Make a change. You don't have to live your life in the same way you lived in the last 5 years. You don't have to suffer the same way you did, only by choice. Nobody can choose for you. Hence, what I stated earlier, that we have the free will, we have the power to choose. Now, for many people, you might think this is difficult. You might think it takes a lifetime of change. You might think it takes a lifetime of study. I actually think breakthrough starts in a moment. Yes, there's a process of removing the shackles, but it begins with a decision. You can stop and say, I have a new piece of paper and I want to write the script for my future. Someone else may have been responsible for the life and the traumatic experiences that I had as a child, as a young person in my past. But I will today become responsible for the future that I have. You can start writing a new script. And then you can act like the person you want to become. Would you be pretending when you start? Yes. Will it be uncertain and unsettling? Yes. Will you feel uncomfortable, out of your comfort zone, unhappy? Yes. Do it anyway. It takes you about a minimum of 90 to 120 days to form a new habit. Do it repeatedly, spaced, repetition, consistently, with emotion, with a focus using your imagination on the end. Derive joy from it. See it as though you're acting a script. You have been playing a script of someone who is depressed and unhappy, Groundhog Day, the same life every single day. You can stop and you can say, today I make a change. Tomorrow I begin a new person, and I'm going to act this person's life, and I'm going to believe that I am that person. If you can keep the following words in your mind: I have seen my future, and I have chosen to live in that future. First one. Second one comes from Henry David Thoreau. And he says, if a person will advance confidently in the direction of their dreams and endeavor to live the life that they have imagined, that they will meet with success unexpected in uncommon hours. Someday, you will wake up and realize that you have become the person that you've been acting like in the prior years. Anxiety is acknowledged. Anxiety doesn't have to become your lifestyle. It may have been part of your life in the past. Depression and anxiety can be stopped, but it begins with letting go. For some people, I would recommend as follows. There's a clinical role with regards to counseling, seeing a therapist, seeing a psychiatrist, to go through and unpack the past. There's also a hopeful role that comes with saying, I'm going to give energy to that past that I do not want. I understand it was wrong, and therefore delving deep into the past to understand why people did what they did doesn't add anything to my life, and I am wasting the one thing I've been given in this life, which is time. And I'm trading a portion of my time and my life for sins committed towards me of the past, by omission or by commission. And therefore, I will not invest any more time in the past. I will just draw the line, and I will simply say, F it. It's done me bad, and it's done bad long enough. It's time for me to live. And set yourself free. Set yourself free. Give yourself the permission to be free. Suffering was not part of our birthright. We were not promised suffering. We were promised abundance, prosperity. We were also promised an adventure. And there is a big difference between an adventure and suffering. I'll leave you with the following sentences so you can understand. The universe, however you describe her, whatever name you call her, does not put upon you a yoke that is too burdensome for you to carry. If you find that the yoke you are carrying is too burdensome, then understand it's a yoke that was not placed on you by the universe. Take it off of your shoulders and be free. I hope today's session has been useful.